Welcome. I'm Dr. Andrew Wilner, author of The Locum Life, a physician's guide to locum tenens. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 11, Malpractice-Avoiding Litigation. But before we start, first of all, it's a Saturday. I just finished rounds. And I want to celebrate that we are now halfway through. This is Chapter 11. The last chapter of the book is Chapter 20, so we've done the first 10, including an introduction. If you'd like to see any of the earlier videos, you can just Google them with the topic, such as pre-retirement or mid-career or locums and residency. Or go to my website, www.andrewwilner.com, and go under the heading videos, and the links are all listed there. My goal is to do all of the chapters so that there's a quick video summary of the entire book. So today's chapter is Malpractice-Avoiding Litigation. So let's start. What is malpractice? Well, first of all, for a physician to be accused of malpractice, they have to have a relationship with the patient. There has to be a standard physician-patient relationship. So you can't get sued for giving advice for someone who's not your patient. Now, whether giving advice actually makes them your patient sometimes can be dicey. But number one, physician-patient relationship. Number two, substandard care. It has to be demonstrated that the care that you delivered was below what a good physician or even an ordinary physician would have done. For example, let's suppose I see a patient in the emergency room who comes in with 3 days of confusion and fever. I check out the patient and I say, well, you probably just have the flu, go home. So the patient goes home and dies. It turns out the patient had encephalitis. Well, as a neurologist, I should have thought of that. Patient had a fever, the patient was confused. I should have done a CT scan and probably a lumbar puncture and made the diagnosis, treated the patient with acyclovir, and maybe they would have been fine. So number two, substandard care. And I also managed to do number three in that case where patient had a poor outcome, which was due to my substandard care. So number two, substandard care, and number three, poor outcome because of the substandard care. So if you see a patient and the patient has a bad outcome, they had a heart attack, they are post-arrest, and then they die through no fault of your own, that is not malpractice. In many cases, that's just the practice of medicine. Well, how common is malpractice? Way too common. More than half of physicians in the U.S. are going to be subject to the accusation of malpractice. And if you're over 55, we're up to about 60%. It also depends, of course, on the number of patients you've seen. The longer your career, the more patients you've seen. Statistically, the more likely you will have a malpractice suit. And it depends on your subspecialty. If you're a surgeon or OBGYN, your chances of getting sued are up by about 70%. If you're a psychiatrist or a pediatrician, much lower. But just the threat of malpractice causes anxiety. It causes defensive medicine, ordering too many tests, increasing expenses. It's a big problem. So what can you do? Well, the best thing to do is practice standard or better than standard medicine. And that's what we all try and do every day. Taking the time to make the right decision, explain carefully your decision to the family, to your colleagues, to the nurses. Document what you've done and what you've thought about, and take the time to establish a rapport with the patient. I think very often physicians make mistakes because they're rushed, and taking the time, making sure there's enough time, is really the challenge. Now, the most common cause of malpractice is a clinical judgment error, a missed or delayed diagnosis. And I think in many cases it's because of rushing rather than lack of expertise where that's the result. If it's lack of expertise, better take some courses and get better at what you're doing. I think the other point about avoiding malpractice is that patients in general will not sue a physician that they like. So if you communicate well with the patient, show that you care, even say that you care. Sometimes I feel compelled to tell the patient, in intensive care, or talk to the family of the patient who's in a coma. It's like, I care about this patient. I'm going to do everything that I can to improve the outcome. What I can do may be limited, but whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And that's what the patient and the patient's family, that's what they want to hear. So as for locums physicians, I think there is no inherent risk of increased malpractice in locums, but my caution would be, as a locums physician, you're often in a new environment with hospital procedures and just structure that you don't really understand, working with colleagues you don't know well, working with the EMR that's frustrating and you haven't mastered yet. So avoid sleep deprivation, show up at work with a good night's rest, take your time, and be vigilant about sloppy errors that can lead to poor outcomes, poor decisions, and potentially malpractice. Well, I hope this short video has been helpful to introduce the topic of malpractice and avoiding litigation. Next time, we're going to talk about Chapter 12, where we discuss the malpractice tail. I look forward to speaking with you then. Thanks for watching.